good to be here. It's July 23rd, 2013. Our work session, we have two topics. For those, Dylan Terslin is on my right. This young man is very much interested in urban planning or foreign affairs. That really relates, doesn't it? Foreign affairs and urban planning. His goal is to go to Georgetown, but anyway, he's with us to observe, and he's a wonderful young man. We appreciate him. Thank you. In fact, many of you already know him, and you know how studious and industrious he truly is. With that being said, the first item is position management budget transfers. Are there any questions? I understand we do have Major Dave Hackworth here from the Sheriff's Office. If there are any questions, Mr. Manager, anything? Hearing none, thank you. Next item is Chesapeake Transportation System update. I appreciate Mr. Sean Eckert for being here. He's now with Raymond James. He's our public finance person, and he has really made a difference for us when it comes to many of the projects you've seen, and has been extremely helpful in front of the Commonwealth Transportation Board when it came to matters of discussing, for instance, Dominion Boulevard. And we thank you for that. Also with us is Earl Soy, Mary Ann Saunders, as well as Gary Walton, Michael Prezisio. Did I say that correct, sir? Thank you. He's the Senior Vice President MVP, and also our friend Mr. Philip Chiquette. Mr. Philip Chiquette has been wonderful in many of the things between the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge, Dominion Boulevard, and many others. He truly is somebody who knows how to keep us all connected, so I thank you for that, sir, very much. With that being said, Mr. Manager, please.
Yeah. This evening we wanted to give you kind of a preview. We've been talking about doing periodic reports on Dominion Boulevard and really this entire Chesapeake Transportation System update. This is really the first one we're doing that. So in addition to just when Earl's going to take the lead in getting us starting on that, but we'd be very interested in any feedback you have about the format, things that you'd like to see that you don't see, or anything of that nature too, because hopefully we'll be doing this on a regular basis, whether that's every 2 months, quarterly, or something like that, to keep you up to speed on the progress as we go forward. And with that, I'd turn it over to Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We'll jump right in. This is a graphic of the Chesapeake Transportation System. I know you've all seen this before, but I'll recap for those watching at home. The Chesapeake Transportation System consists of the existing Chesapeake Expressway, which you can see the tolled portion here in green, and then what a lot of folks refer to as the bypass and the Oak Grove connector here in purple, as well as Dominion Boulevard shown here in blue. And of course, the goal is to operate the system as a single facility with operations combined to reduce overhead. And just to note that tolls on Dominion Boulevard will not be imposed until the construction is completed. Just a little bit of details on the project. The contractor is Dominion Boulevard Constructors. That's a joint venture of McLean Contracting, A.V. Williams, Bryant Contracting, and R.R. Dawson Bridge Company. Initial contract value at $188 million. Construction did start in early January with a fixed completion date of April the 1st, 2017. And I will note that the contract does include a bonus for early completion. I'll walk you through several slides on construction updates. We've had a lot of discussion on utilities recently. The relocation of the franchise utilities should be 100% completed by August the 31st. The main line of Dominion Boulevard from Great Bridge Boulevard to Cedar Road is now completely clear. There are still some telecommunication equipment south of Cedar and along Great Bridge Boulevard that is yet to be relocated. The conduit for those systems has already been installed. Verizon has advised us that they will begin pulling cable next week. So that is continuing to progress. I can say that there are currently no conflicts with any franchise utilities in our construction. Then relocation of the public utilities continues. That's being done by our contractor. In terms of bridge construction, and I'll have several photos coming up. The northbound bridge is being constructed first, so that's that's what you see coming up out of the ground. The combination of the concrete piles, footings, piers, and caps. So the goal there is to build the northbound bridge first, get two-way traffic onto that one bridge, and then the next phase, demolish the existing steel bridge and build the southbound bridge. In terms of roadway construction, that continues with a focus on the temporary detour along Bainbridge Boulevard. That detour is scheduled to be implemented in November of this year. Also working on the extension of Libertyville Road to Great Bridge Boulevard. That extension should be open in the next 2 weeks, weather permitting, and also working on the ramps for the future Dominion Lakes interchange. The installation of the stormwater system continues. There's 6 stormwater basins being constructed. 5 of those are under construction at this time. One of the things that the joint venture decided to do was to construct their own on-site concrete plant. That allows them ultimate flexibility in when concrete is available. They estimate that they will batch 60,000 cubic yards of concrete. So I've given you a graphic there to a picture of a football field filled end to end to a height of 34 feet is the equivalent of what 60,000 cubic yards would be. The benefit to the citizens is that's going to eliminate nearly 6,000 truckloads of concrete over city roads. There are a number of environmental permits that were required for the project. The latest compliance review was held on June the 10th. We had a joint visit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Quality, and we received a positive review for permit compliance. Now I'll go through several construction photos, and we'll start with just a quick anatomy of a bridge. So for our piers, they are built on a cluster of piles capped off by a footing. A column is constructed on top of that with a cap. So here to the pictures, in the pictures to the right, you can see the pile drive in operation. So those piles range from 12 inches by 12 inches square up to 30 inches by 30 inches square. Pretty straightforward process. It's there's basically what amounts to a large hammer attached to a crane. It drives the piles until they get to a predetermined bearing capacity, and they have to be driven down to a predetermined depth. So the depth on those piles generally ranges from 60 to 80 feet in the ground. And here you can see formwork for the footing that's poured over top of those piles, really to join those structural elements together. You can see the structural steel that's embedded in the foundation that the pier will connect to. Here you can see a nearly finished pier construction with the pier cap. On the lower elevations of the bridge, we're using what you would refer to as pile bents. That they're more economical at the lower elevations. At the higher elevations, your spans are typically longer. You need a more substantial structural element. So we're using piers in those locations. Just a shot of the concrete batch plant that's located on the joint venture's property to the southwest of the existing steel bridge. This is the site where we had the groundbreaking back in December. So this is what it looks like today. This is our future mitigation site. And this photo is hot off the press. Our first beams were set yesterday. All the reports came back excellent. All the beams were set to within 1/100th of an inch. This is looking east at the northbound bridge. We do have a very experienced team managing the construction of the project. City staff members are providing general oversight and contract administration. MVP is providing daily construction management and inspection services. They're running the quality assurance, quality control program, our materials testing, and construction documentation. And I really want to underscore the construction documentation. With this being a federally funded project, also with a state VTIB loan. The documentation is going to be critical for us to be able to withstand any type of audits that will certainly be forthcoming. Parsons Brinkerhoff is our design engineer, so they are continuing to provide construction support primarily in shop drawing reviews and environmental permit compliance. We've had a great deal of discussion about change orders on a project of this magnitude and this high profile. Our plan is to just share every single change order with council. You will certainly welcome comments on the reporting format, and I'll just walk you through this real quick. Adding the columns up, top to bottom, it really doesn't mean anything. You really have to look at this left to right. So with the original $188,070,000 contract, we had our first change order of $91,071. That gives us the new contract amount shown here for a change of 0.048%. The next two change orders were actually credits, and that came out of the value engineering proposal. That's typical on a project of this magnitude, that the contractor, once they really delve into the construction plans, they may identify some cost savings. So these two change orders came about as a result of that process. They typically come at the beginning of construction, so we may not see those type of credits going forward. But to give you a quick rundown, the change order one was to add, because of the high volumes of traffic along the corridor, we added additional flagger services as well as portable changeable message signs to provide the best information possible to our motoring public. Then, again, change order two was a value engineering proposal that just swapped out some materials. Basically, we put in some wick drains and eliminated porous fill. And change order three was raising some footings, basically avoided having to construct coffer dams, resulted in a significant savings. So the change orders net out to a credit right now of $2.16 million. In addition to reporting change orders, we also want to report what we're referring to as exposure. And that is, as the note says, that is based on anticipated expenses that have been identified due to a host of things, to include differing site conditions, contract omissions, and user-requested changes. So, rather than waiting for these to turn into change orders, because a change order start to finish, by the time something is identified to the time it makes its way through our process, it can take some time. We, in the interest of full disclosure, we want to make council aware of issues as we become aware of them. So we've identified exposure through April 30th of $2.499 million, and I can give you some examples. One was having to modify some piles due to differing site conditions. We have had some contract omissions. So out of nearly 1,000 pay items in the contract, we identified 3 new pay items that needed to be added. I can give you an example. One was to add a line item for trainees to the contract. The Federal Highway Guidelines require projects of this size to have trainees. There was a drainage structure that was omitted. That has been added back in. And user-requested changes. Probably the most notable one was we asked that a 8-inch sanitary force main be bored under existing wetlands as opposed to open trenching as was identified on the plans. That minimized the wetland impacts and also eliminated us having to go back and get a modification to our existing permit. We certainly appreciate the public's patience. This is a critical project in terms of safety and congestion relief, but there have and are going to be inconveniences along the way. We are using a number of means to get word out on traffic disruptions, lane closures. I can give you some quick stats. We have conducted 15 presentations to various groups along the corridor. We've responded to over 200 inquiries through our customer contact center, and we're averaging roughly 1,300 hits a month on our project webpage. So now
Before we go into the Chesapeake Expressway, two things, and I'll open up the council when it comes to Dominion. I'll certainly ask our other members here, visitors, if they have anything to say. I talked to the city manager. What's the possibility? This has been a remarkable project in terms of the way it's been getting done. I mean, it's almost like a breakthrough. This is a way to how to do a bridge, it seems. Can we get a web cam up there to show people on our website the daily movement of what's going on? Because this is a very positive thing, and if people want to come into our city to live or economic development, they're going to have something extremely visual to look at then on how we are a city that gets things done and is open for business. Is that something that is reasonable to look at? Mr. Sawyer, Mr. Manager?
Certainly we can look at it. The logistics are probably more for Earl or somebody else to address.
Yes, sir. We'll if it's okay, we would like to investigate the feasibility of that and bring a report back.
I mean, just by showing what you, in one of the pictures, what looks like a bridge would be wonderful, and if people can look at that, I think it would be helpful. The other thing is that many of us have received notices from those living nearby, and you talked about inconveniences, and they talk about trees being knocked down near their backyards. Is anything being done to talk with these people, communicating with them or helping them? Because I don't know if it creates drainage problems or flooding or what have you.
We are tracking all of the contacts through our customer contact center to make sure that they're all captured, and we are most of these situations are somewhat unique, so we are kind of taking those as they come.
Thank you. Before I open up the council, is there anything, Mr. Eckert, you want to say at this time on this project?
No, I'll comment more when we talk about the
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chiquette, anything at this time as it relates to Dominion in any form or manner?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Prezioso, anything at this time? Just like seeing him move forward. Council members, anything at this time? If not, Chesapeake Expressway, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll switch gears quickly and talk about the Chesapeake Expressway, and I'll give you some general highlights, and Mr. Eckert will go into a little more detail on this in subsequent slides. The overall traffic is down slightly when compared to last fiscal year. Anecdotally, we have noticed lighter traffic in the Outer Banks. We've downloaded some information from the Outer Banks Visitor Center website, and they've reported year-to-date gross occupancy tax receipts are down 4.4% from the 2012 season. And they break that down further by category. One notable item was hotel and motel occupancy receipts were down 8.85%. Those oftentimes tend to be more of the day trippers that can make discretionary trips, that can choose to go down if the weather is good, that can choose to stay home if it's not. We know it's been a wet spring, a relatively wet summer, but kind of across the board, their metrics are showing a downward trend. Their gross meals tax, for instance, those receipts are down nearly 2%. So the revenues are down slightly as compared to last fiscal year, but they're tracking very close to the projected revenue per the Steer-Davy-Gleaves traffic and revenue study. And diversion to Battlefield Boulevard is still less than what was originally projected in the SDG study. And I'll go into a little bit of the renewal and replacement efforts on the next slide. One thing I do want to point out, we had reported last season that we were, trying to track the diversion from the expressway to Battlefield, and there were some gaps in our data on Battlefield Boulevard. We had some equipment failures, had some vandalism of the traffic count tubes. For this season, we have installed a permanent count station on Battlefield Boulevard at the foot of Toll Plaza Road, so now we will be able to get reliable 24/7 traffic count data, so we'll be able to do those trend analyses over time. One trivia note is we do expect to serve our 50 millionth customer sometime next week. So certainly a milestone for the Chesapeake Expressway.
What do you give them?
Right. Give you a little bit of insight into where the revenue is being spent for our fiscal year 2012-13. Spent just under $2 million. The majority of that was on repaving, and I know these mile markers may not mean anything to you, but that's basically from the North Carolina-Virginia state line up to about a mile south of the toll plaza. And you see some additional work on some of our stormwater obstructions and some bridge deck sealing. For 13-14, we have a budget of $3.55 million. We will continue paving from where we left off, just south of the toll plaza to just south of Hillcrest Parkway. Also doing some roadway canopy lighting repairs and some additional repairs at the administrative building. And you can see photos of that at the bottom of the slide. And now Mr. Eckert will go into some additional detail on the revenue of the expressway.
Thanks, Earl. As you may recall, when the city issued its transportation system revenue bonds back in November of last year to finance Dominion Boulevard construction and to refinance the original expressway debt, there's some feedback from investors seeking more regular, more detailed information about traffic and revenue on the system. And so the city agreed at that time that it would provide more frequent reporting that would be available to the investor community as well as the public and any other interested parties. The numbers here on this slide are extracted from a template that we've worked with staff to put together. The first of those more frequent reports will be wrapped up in the next few days and be posted to the city's website, and information will be disseminated to investors so that they know where to find it and know that information is available. And then what we'll have going forward is monthly updates of traffic and revenue on the system, and then likely quarterly updates regarding the progress of construction, and that'll all be in a relatively concise package for investors to use. So what you see here on slide 17 is unaudited cash basis revenue figures for fiscal year 2013 as compared to the prior fiscal year. We'll talk a little bit later. We'll have a more detailed report for the Toll Facility Advisory Committee as well as for Council at the completion of the peak summer season, which will get into some more of the detail on exactly what some of the traffic trends are and what some of the revenue trends are. But just the bigger picture items, as you see here on the far right-hand side, toll revenue for fiscal 13 was down about $200,000 from the prior year, which is a decline of about 1.9%. Notably, there was a decline in both the revenue collected from discount program transactions as well as the non-discount transactions. We did see a shift. Easy Pass customers are representing a greater share of the overall traffic. We expect that will increase further as additional toll facilities in the region, if in fact those tolls do come online. But not just in Hampton Roads, but beyond. Easy Pass is penetrating a greater number of vehicles, and so as a result, you're seeing more of those travelers on the expressway. If we just turn to the next page, as we mentioned, while revenue declined about 1.9% in FY13 versus the prior year, revenues are up substantially. Back in fiscal year 10, at $7.1 million, the revenue from the expressway at that time was likely to be insufficient to meet all of the obligations of operating expenses, renewal, replacement expenses, as well as debt service expenses. The toll increase went into effect the following fiscal year, was in effect for the full year fiscal 2012. As you see in that year, revenue exceeded the projected forecasted revenue by about 5%. In fiscal year 13, those two figures got closer together. Overall revenue was about 1.5% below the forecast for the fiscal year. With any toll facility, we anticipate there to be some variation against the forecast. Certainly your facility, which is impacted materially by things like weather, as well as overall economic conditions, as well as some of the things that may impact travelers down to the Outer Banks. A 1.5% variance from the forecast is not really a cause for concern at this point. You have a very long-term financial plan, and that financial plan builds into it the accumulation of substantial reserves. It includes significant debt service coverage margins against your senior bonds, and also you have very flexible repayment terms on a large portion of the debt on the transportation system. So, while certainly we would prefer revenue to be ahead of forecast for the year, at this point, there isn't anything that needs to be modified in the financial plan given this variance. It's just something we'll, as I mentioned, we'll continue to track on a monthly basis, traffic and revenue trends, as well as, as the books are closed for the fiscal year, we can also take a closer look at the expense side of the operation as well. As I mentioned, we'll continue to monitor those figures and have more detail on traffic and revenue in a few months from now, once the peak season is concluded, since that's really the primary driver of revenue from the expressway is not just the fiscal year, but certainly July, August, September are important months.
So our next steps would be, as Sean noted, to continue to track the data as it's coming in, but to post the monthly traffic and revenue continuing disclosure reports on the city's website, to look at the quarterly project expenditure report and get that on the city's website. And then in October, we'll have the annual review by our Transportation Tolls Facility Advisory Committee. They'll be looking at the traffic, revenue, and toll rates. So that concludes our formal comments.
Thank you. Before I open it to the council and Dr. Dietrich, could you please get this report, especially to the TPO, related to the fact that North Carolina is seeing a decrease in their own revenue and hotel motel occupancy? I think that's important because information that I was getting apparently wasn't correct the way they were talking about the Chesapeake Expressway. So I think affirming that we are doing well and the numbers are reflecting that the downturn is more related to the tourist industry going to North Carolina, I think that would be helpful. Mr. Sori. Dr. Dietrich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the manager for bringing the report about the Dominion Boulevard project forward, as I suggested about a month ago. And also to do this on a recurring basis. You mentioned quarterly, Earl. I don't know. I don't want to tax, and none of us want to tax staff to be presenting these. I mean, Mr. Manager, or Earl, what do you think would be an appropriate number of reports, interval reports over the years, since I think all council members do want something on an ongoing basis?
I mean, I'll let Earl add whatever he wants to. I think what we've anticipated is that part of this may be dependent on what's actually going on in terms of construction. We don't want to give you a report that doesn't have a whole lot to offer you. So it may change over time. I would anticipate that we would give you a report, at least in written form, every quarter, just to keep you up to speed. And if it looks like there's significant material that's worthwhile us making a presentation, we would do that too. And we also want some feedback from you. I don't know, Earl, whether you have additional thoughts on the matter.
Well, like I said, we've committed to doing quarterly reports for the investors. So, if it's council's desire for us to put a presentation, certainly that can be done.
This is the type of a report that the investors would be
It's going to be a little more detailed. More numbers, less pictures, of course.
They're not really interested in the pictures. They're interested in the dollar signs.
That's right.
But that's fine. Mr. Mayor, I'll leave that up to you and council as to what. But I certainly think if it's not too much to give us a written report on a quarterly basis, and then if there's something that comes forward. And, the importance of it, obviously, is not only to keep council appraised of the progress and the good work that's being done, but also to avoid and mitigate those unpleasant experiences council has had in the past when it was not kept updated on issues related to major construction projects. So I think this is a very good step, Mr. Manager.
And I think the other thing that sometimes it's easy for me and maybe you all to lose track of is that we tend to know more about these projects than the general public does as well, because we see more of it on a day-to-day basis, and I think it always helps for them to see whether things are going along as projected and maybe upcoming things to look for as well.
And I have a question that's not related to these projects, but Mr. Eckert probably is aware of this, but it's come to my attention that there's some very serious discussion in Washington on both sides of the aisle regarding putting a cap on interest deductions for municipal bonds. And I know that could have a potential negative effect on municipalities and localities. Would you be able to comment on that at all for council?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And yeah, in the ongoing discussions about how to balance the federal budget, ideas have been introduced by both parties that would either cap the interest deduction for individuals in higher tax brackets who receive what is now tax-free income from municipal bonds. There are also proposals out there that would eliminate the ability of governments to issue tax-free bonds entirely, and just have your bonds be fully taxable to the owners thereof. Certainly, either one of those two proposals, as I just described them, would increase the cost of borrowing for local governments, and certainly it's difficult to predict exactly what that cost would be and how it would change investor behavior. There remains an appetite for municipal bonds that have to be issued on a taxable basis, and there were some programs that resulted in a lot of bonds being issued on a taxable basis with some reimbursement from the federal government, which the city took advantage of in 2009, 2010. But overall, certainly those types of policies would increase your cost of borrowing on future debt, wouldn't increase what you pay on the bonds that you've already issued. Those terms are set. There have been a number of groups, National League of Cities, National Association of Counties, Finance Officers Association, many other folks who are expressing their interest in preserving the tax-free status of state and local government debt, and I certainly would encourage you all to work through those channels to express those sentiments that, a measure that may improve the federal government's financial picture doesn't necessarily balance the overall cost of government if it just simply, shifts a higher expense to you all.
And does that tax advantage apply only to individuals, or is there also a piece to that of the municipal bond interest? Does it?
Municipal.
Go ahead.
Yeah, municipal bond interest is tax-free for individuals as well as for a lot of corporations.
That's what my question was. So
yeah.
we're talking about large investment amounts potentially.
That's correct. There are, and in particular, insurance companies currently, as well as banks and other financial institutions. Both are major investors in municipal bonds and take advantage of the tax benefits thereof. Right. And in all likelihood, that would drop out of the market. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, there are investors who do not benefit from the tax advantage buying tax-free municipal bonds now, but would be purchasers of bonds at a taxable interest rate. Foreign investors, for example, that don't pay federal income tax. Mm-hmm. So there are some new investors that would come in, but overall, if you eliminate the tax advantage of municipals, the cost of borrowing will go up.
And it's not an insignificant amount of money. I read somewhere over 10 years, we're talking about $1.5 trillion worth of bonds.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's it would not be it would probably cause the cost of funds to go up by approximately 20 to 25%, are some of the estimates I've seen. So the interest expense associated with your future debt, would be that much higher. Mm-hmm. If that's assuming the elimination of the tax advantage entirely. Right. If it's capped, it's a different number there. But some of the discussion of those proposals are already having an impact on the market to some extent. There is a fear from certain investors that any change in policy would apply retroactively to bonds already issued.
That's nice.
So an investor who currently collects a 4%.
I thought this was America.
Yeah.
Well, let me do this. We do have several council members.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I do have Mr. Matheson, Dr. Ward, and then Mr. Hike. Mr. Matheson, please.
It's a good point to bring up, Dr. Dietrich. Obviously, when you potentially decrease demand from those folks that benefit most from holding tax-exempt, state and federal tax-exempt bonds, it could have a hugely detrimental effect on a lot of municipalities. So, we had a gentleman at a recent continuing education forum who last name is Friedman, and he's camped in D.C., but I also understand there's a tremendous amount of opposition on both sides of the aisle to that suggestion of capping the exemption as far as tax brackets. So I hope, but there are lots of other things they're going after as well. So, but that would be really, really not a good way to go, obviously, for municipalities and states. I might have heard you incorrectly, but the Dominion Boulevard project, did you allude to the fact that as far as qualifications, guidelines, and so forth that need to be followed in terms of qualifying for the financial VTIB, for example? Did you allude to that earlier? I thought I heard you say something very briefly on that point. And if so, what do we need to watch out for? What are the greatest risks in terms of, that we have to be vigilant to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I think, certainly in order to, you have a commitment for the VTIB loan. You have not drawn any of those proceeds yet. You'll be spending the proceeds of the public bond sale first. There are a broad range of covenants that need to be complied with, both on the financial performance of the revenue-generating portion of the system that's there now, and as I mentioned, although we were slightly below forecast on revenue, you're well in compliance with those financial tests that are there. There are also, certainly tests with respect to how the proceeds of those bond issues are used. There's a number of checks and balances in the system to make sure all of the expenditures are qualifying expenditures. So certainly the city's finance staff, the bond trustee, and a number of other folks are monitoring all of those things to make sure you're staying in compliance.
Good. Certainly, I mean, the revenue bonds are the project has to be complete and raising tolls. I was just curious, though, in terms of the earlier stages as far as construction and so forth, if they're also how the money's used and so forth. But I'm sure we have folks that are vigilant right now in terms of just making sure that there's full compliance.
That's correct. Certainly, all of the invoices for the project go through third-party review, and then the money is sourced from the bond trustee. And so there's probably 4 different checks to it.
Yeah, and part of the service that MVP is providing for us is they're doing all of the records management. You virtually any invoice, any cost, any action is all captured in a SharePoint site. So for audit purposes, it was literally right there at the click of a mouse to pull that in.
So there's continued vigilance at all times and regular
Yes, sir.
checkups. And okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ward, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Manager and Mr. Story. And I was just really glad to hear, to get the report on any of those change orders. And I think that's a great thing. We're really excited the fact that we're going to have an update every 3 months or quarterly to keep us informed so that we don't get caught or at least accused of being not knowledgeable of the change orders. So we really appreciate that. Also, I'm glad that you did bring out the fact that the occupancy rates is down, hotel rates down in North Carolina because it's part of the TPO. We do kind of get that, whether it's the expressway and, our tolls have made a difference, but the impact is really reflected because, more than likely, and with weather too, that things are down in North Carolina and they use the expressway, so that's part of the reason for the decrease in revenue. Now, when you look at the chart, because it was, I think, April, May, that when you got the total, and I'm looking at the chart on page 18, is it possible, I see the total projection for 11-12 certainly was a remarkable increase, and it's a very small percentage change where we are lower than projected revenue, 1.5, so, and it's early yet, so it's a possibility that it could still go up before the end of the year. Will you be looking at it again?
Well, the figures for fiscal 2013 are through. It's a 12-month fiscal year against a 12-month fiscal year. But
Right.
we'll have, when we come back in October, we'll be able to report on the performance in July, August, and probably
Maybe
September.
September.
And so we'll have a little bit more data on the full peak season. And
Right.
while our financial tests basically run fiscal year to fiscal year, we should at least have the first 2 or 3 months of fiscal 14 that we'll be able to share and glean sort of the full summer season trend,
season.
as opposed to what we have now, which really only gets through June 30th, which
Right.
is really just the start of the high season for the tourism season.
Exactly. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steig, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to commend the city manager, particularly Mr. Sorey and his management team. This project just seems to be going so smoothly. The logistics of constructing a road in this manner is just amazing. I try and drive down in that area at least twice a week, and I've never run into a problem where there's any more traffic restriction or slowdown there than there was on the existing road. And the logistics to get that done with moving construction vehicles in and out is just a testament to the quality of the contractors we have. The fact that we're saving 6,000 concrete truck trips down Chesapeake City roads, I don't know if we can even put a price on that. And the repairs of everything from those heavy trucks coming down, that's amazing. And to think that you can work concrete to limits within 1/100th of an inch that just boggles my mind. And I'm glad to see that the public is assured that there will be no tolls on the road until it's completed. And again, I commend you guys. This project seems to be going perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else for these young people here? If, Mr. Manager, I'd like to have a work session. At the TPO, we've been talking about mega projects, and I think it would be important for council to be briefed about what's going on. In fact, at the very last meeting, there were some changes as it relates to hopefully rescoring projects, mega projects, including looking at the segments with and without tolls, I would be assuming. I think this is extremely important because many of the things we've seen in the newspaper always talk about the third crossing, and they actually talk about one specific segment. In reality, the third crossing, if it should be looked at and rescored in the segments, because 664, if certain things are done, potentially it'll be almost 2.0 as it relates to volume over capacity, which is equivalent, if not equal, equivalent, but potentially greater than what's going on at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel right now. So I think it would be important for council to appreciate what's happening. I do thank council for their approval as it related to the legislative package. When it came to the high-rise bridge of $5 million, Mr. Manager, I know we're going to shortly be doing the legislative package, and I don't know what the actual amount of money is needed for an EIS, but whatever's left and needed, we should put that in our legislative package and make it happen. I really want to thank, I have a meeting tomorrow, actually, with VDOT, and they have been, if Mr. Sawyer wants to talk a little bit about the movement on the high-rise bridge, it has been something we should all be thankful for, and extreme gratitude in the diligence that they're performing with this particular project. If you would appreciate saying something, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. VDOT is using one of their on-call contracts to do the environmental impact study that was recently funded by VDOT and the CTB in the amount of $5 million. So we've been in contact with their project management team. I believe a kickoff meeting is scheduled for next month, and we'll be fully participating in that process.
It usually takes about 3 years, is that my understanding, to get an EIS passed at the VDOT level as well as FHWA, which is the Federal Highways Administration. Is that my understanding?
Yes, sir.
Is there any way we can move even faster?
They are, yes, certainly aware of our sense of urgency, and we will, try to move that along as quickly as we can. Yeah, I will say the project manager that will be heading this for the private consultant is somebody that we've successfully worked with on other projects, so I think that'll help us through this.
Please appreciate, high-rise bridge is not a Chesapeake project. It is indeed probably one of the more significant projects as it relates to hurricane evacuation. And I think it's important that we continue looking at this as a regional project. I think it's extremely important to also acknowledge the fact in terms of truck trips, it's, I think, what, Mr. Chiquette, the second highest generator in truck traffic. But more importantly, this is necessitated because it's an evacuation route, and everyone at the TPO sees that, acknowledges that, but our timetable is one where we must continue moving forward with an EIS and getting a record of decision, so hopefully we keep letting them know that. So again, I thank council for their perseverance in putting that in the legislative package. With that said, anything else for the, pardon, Dr. Wood, I'm sorry.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, just in conjunction with what you just said about high-rise bridge and the urgency of it, and of course, announcements are already being out that because the downtown tunnel is at westbound, it's going to be closed until June 14th, or one of the lanes, and they're recommending that travelers use the high-rise bridge from now until June 2014 for a whole year. It's effective next month for a whole 12 months. So it is really critical that it's not just a Chesapeake issue. This is a regional issue indeed. Thank you.
Ms. Ritter, please.
Thank you for bringing up the rescoring of the projects, and I hope that you'll be able to keep us up to date with that. There seem to be a number of issues coming to light, and all I really have heard is what I've read in the paper. But there's been discussion about the transportation funding passed by the General Assembly would only be directed at the regional mega projects, that they would not be able to be used on local projects. But I know that you'll bring us as soon as possible a definition of what really is a regional project. I agree with you. The high-rise bridge is probably the second most critical one to me, and the rescoring is interesting because every day, reading or listening to the news, the biggest traffic problem in the entire region seems to be the HRBT. And the fact that that's not being touched is just shocking to me. And of course, years ago, I think I said, and I still believe it today, had that been on that referendum, it likely would have passed. If the people who developed the referendum had bothered to talk to people who drive every day, I think there might have been a different reason. But I thank you for keeping us up to date, and I don't want to take something away from Dr. Dietrich or Dr. Ward, but if we are going to do something about the projections on 664, maybe we could talk to Dr. Dietrich and Dr. Ward about doing that over in the Western Branch area, because they will be the most affected by all the work that's being done over there. So 2 more quick things. The Gold Star Highway sign, I got to see that several times in the past couple of weeks. Looks great. I do hope that we'll be able to work with the federal government to use the actual Gold Star, but the sign's there. It's very visible, and it's quite nice. So thank you, Mr. Martin, Mr. Story, for getting that done so quickly. And I'd also like to let you all know that Marianne Saunders on Thursday is going to be making a presentation to the Virginia Municipal League Transportation Committee regarding our use of the Transportation Infrastructure Bank, and kind of walk other members of the Transportation Committee through that. We've got a very extensive agenda, but the staff, when I suggested that Marianne come, and I chair that committee, they jumped at the opportunity to have other localities, other cities, learn about how well we've done things. So I want to thank Marianne and Mr. Baker for making that possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say something, Mr. Craig? Okay, Mr. Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, last Tuesday in the Virginia Pilot, there was a piece in the editorial section about Suffolk's new bike trail, and they called it the 11.5-mile Seaboard Coastline Trail. And it said it went all the way to the Chesapeake border. And later on in the piece, it mentions that the city councils in Chesapeake and Virginia Beach have voted to support the Southampton Roads Trail, and Chesapeake has set aside the land for its portion. Just curious in terms of where might Chesapeake be in that effort, and also the feasibility of it as well, because just imagine, I think Ms. Ritter had a big hand in the Dismal Swamp Trail, but if could you imagine if we could connect somehow those 2 trails, it could really do something for the whole area, just as a great amenity, but also economically as well, the types of events that it could draw. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any kudos or things that the staff needs to hear at this time? Mr. Craig, is there anything you want to say about the Beach Boys?
They look old. The Beach Boys were fantastic. They did a great job. We had a good turnout. Perfect weather, about 100, 102. It was a good Beach Boys weekend, and I'm happy that we have concerts. Nobody would have believed that we have the Beach Boys in Chesapeake, Virginia, but we did. And Charlie Daniels' band was even better the next night. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Next is going to then be council updates. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here and your service to our city. We'll see you downstairs. session, please stand for the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be led by our council member, Debbie Ritter, please.
Thank you. This evening, I ask everyone to remember that we come together in peace. We pray for knowledge. We do pray for peace. We pray for wisdom. And we pray for graciousness for all of those. I say this tonight as a point of, I guess, privilege in the prayer to remember a lifelong friend of mine who exemplified integrity, wisdom, sharing, and giving, Rowena Fullenweider, who passed away yesterday. I ask all of you to remember Rowena in spirit and to exemplify her spirit of giving as you go through the week. Say this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much for those comments and prayer. We have a young man. His name is Dylan Terzlin. Mr. Dylan Terzlin happens to be a rising senior at Atlantic Shores. He has a 4.5 average. He wants to go to Georgetown University. He wants to either be an urban planner or he wants to get into foreign affairs. He's accompanied here tonight by his mom, Tammy. We appreciate you being here, sir. Please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you and the time you've been with us this afternoon. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Craig.
Present.
Vice Mayor Dietrich. Here. Councilmember Ike. Councilmember Kelly. Mayor Krasnoff.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Matheson.
Present.
Councilmember Ritter. Councilmember Ward. Councilmember West.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kelly will be excused from tonight's council session, please. With that being said, we do have approval of minutes. The minutes for the work sessions and regular meetings of June 25th, June 9th, July 9th, 2013 have been submitted for your approval. If there's no corrections, the motion is now in order. Thank you, Dr. Dietrich. Thank you, Dr. Ward. Members, please prepare to vote. Please vote. Please record the vote.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented. Vice Mayor.
Thank you so much.
It is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Absolutely. Thank you. With that being said, Mr. Vice Mayor, would you please continue with the meeting as I go to the lectern?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, the City Council recognizes you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor and Council. It is indeed an honor, as we have done over the last several months. At the end of the month, we usually have our 50th anniversary celebration events, and this is for the upcoming month, August 2013. If I can have the following people to please come forward. On the 50th Anniversary Executive Committee, it's our very own Dolores Moore. She is the 2013 Clerk of the Year. Isn't that correct? Yes, it is. Parks and Recreation Director Mike Barber. Accompanying him will also be Parks and Recreation Specialist 2 Sally Triolet, and Velo Racing Bicycle Event Coordinator Christina Tewin to please come forward as Ms. Moore presents the certificate as well as comments, please. Ms. Moore, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure this evening to represent the 50th Anniversary Committee and to recognize the official 50th event for the month of August. We're now halfway through the city's anniversary year, and there are still lots of celebration to come. But this evening, I'd like to present a certificate of recognition to Velo Racing Bicycle Event Coordinator Christina Tewin. Ms. Tewin is here representing the Chesapeake Criterium Annual Bicycle Race, a family event held annually in the month of August at the Municipal Center. This year's event will be on Saturday, August the 10th, and information about the race, as well as registration information, can be found on the city's website at www.cityofchesapeake.net under the Parks and Recreation Department's link, and on the 50th Anniversary's website at www.chesapeake50.com. So, Ms. Tewan, at this time, it's my pleasure to present to you, on behalf of the Mayor and the Chesapeake City Council, this certificate of recognition to the Chesapeake Criterium Annual Bicycle Race as the 2013 official event, celebrating the City of Chesapeake's 50th anniversary in the month of August. Thank you very much.
As always.
Thank you so much. We do have a special presentation. We are indeed honored to have with us our sheriff, our very own sheriff, an upstanding young man, a man who happens to, I understand, to be the tallest sheriff in all of America and the universe, I understand. With that being said, can I ask the sheriff, our sheriff, Jim O'Sullivan, to please come forward. Accompanying him will be Major David Hackworth and Deputy Barbara Barrett. I do have the distinguished honor. We have a visiting sheriff, Mr. Brian Roberts. Mr. Brian Roberts is from Brunswick County. If he would please come and join us. Mr. Brian Roberts, by the way, when he was first elected, was 31 years old. Come on over here. They can't see you unless you're on camera. 31 years old. This young man is now 37. I also want to say this. He is a very proud parent, been married now 13 years, has two magnificent children, one being 6 and the other one being 11. He is currently the Vice President of Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. He also is the treasurer of the Virginia Association, Virginia Sheriff's Association, but of a greater distinction. Virginia Tech's very own offensive lineman, 320 pounds of muscle. In 1993, the man went to the Gator Bowl. Would you go to also to the Sugar Bowl, was that? The Sugar Bowl. He is indeed a proud recipient of the many years of greatness. With that being said, sir, would you please tell us why we're here tonight, sir?
Oh, boy, come on.
Let's start singing the good old song.
Oh, no. I hope there's no wahoos in the room. It's quite an honor, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that warm invitation and welcoming. Mr. Vice Mayor, honorable council members, thank you very much for the opportunity. I am Sheriff Roberts, and I am the Vice Chair of the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. I'm here tonight to recognize the Chesapeake Sheriff's Department for their continued commitment to law enforcement excellence, as evidenced in their latest successful completion of the recertification of the law enforcement professional standards. All accreditation programs are designed to measure, confirm, and compliance of the participating agency with their professional standards in whatever discipline or profession they're involved, whether it's medical or academic. The same goes for law enforcement. It is one of the many means by which citizens and government leaders can be assured that an agency is maintaining the high-performance marks to which the community has a right. In Virginia, law enforcement agencies can seek and achieve accredited status, but they're not required. It is a voluntary program. The fact further distinguishes the Chesapeake Sheriff's Department for their commitment to professionalism and their willingness to be measured by and compared to the best in their profession. The Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission was founded in the early 90s to provide law enforcement agencies in the Commonwealth with an avenue for demonstrating that they had met the 180 standards to show that they are efficient and effective in agency operations. Since then, out of over 417 eligible law enforcement agencies, 87 have become accredited. Chesapeake obviously being one of those 87. There's still over 300 plus agencies in Virginia in law enforcement that are not accredited. Each agency that participates must meet and exceed the criteria contained in each standard by demonstrating to the Commission that they possess, utilize, and have followed the adopted standards that are contained within their policies, rules, and regulations. This past April, a team of Biloxi certified assessors assessed the Sheriff's Office. They issued a report advising they had found the agency to be in compliance with all applicable standards required by the accreditation program. On June 6th, Sheriff O'Sullivan came before the Executive Board and unanimously was approved for his Sheriff's Department to be Biloxi accredited. On behalf of the Biloxi Commission, I congratulate the entire Chesapeake Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Jim O'Sullivan, the accreditation manager, Barbara Barrett, for their attention to detail in maintaining the files required for the program and the dedication to the excellent completion of this program. I also congratulate the city because it is a representation of you. I would like to make one special note. Mr. Mayor had acknowledged that I was the treasurer of the Sheriff's Association, and that requires me to spend a lot of time in Richmond at the General Assembly. And I think I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge to commend Sheriff O'Sullivan on his huge accomplishment in getting House Bill 1635 passed through the General Assembly this year for the waivers as it relates to temporary structural jails. I was up there probably about 23 to 24 days this past year, and when Jim came through the General Assembly talking about this, I didn't think it had a chance in the world of getting through, and to be very candid. And it's a lot to be said for what was accomplished in him getting that through, and he spent a lot of time up there. So beyond the accreditation, I did want to give that acknowledgement to Jim for that. But again, I do thank you for this opportunity. I think there's a plaque, Mr. Mayor, that I'd like to formally present, sir, if that's okay, and read that. And it reads, a certificate of accreditation. This document certifies that the City of Chesapeake Sheriff's Office came before the Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission on June 6, 2013, and has met the requirements set forth by the said commission, and therefore is certified accredited agency for a period of 4 years. This is their second award. Congratulations, Sheriff O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Sheriff Roberts, and I'll be very brief. First of all, I just wanted to let you know that we do have a former nose guard for the University of Virginia sitting right up there, Councilman Scott Matheson. And we don't want to square off in here, but it is for a competitive nature. But this is truly an honor. This means a lot to our office. It means that we are an accredited agency. It gets us a triple crown for our medical, for our Department of Corrections, and for our law enforcement. But I'd be remiss to say that this was me, because I have to tell you it is the fine people that work for me. And I'd like to thank you, David Hackworth, for all your work, and especially Deputy Barbara Barrett for your time and energy. And it is her birthday today, too, that she's spending with us. So thank you guys for all you do, and thank you, Sheriff Roberts, for coming here. Thank you all.
We are indeed honored to be able tonight to recognize a gentleman who has had so far an incredibly distinguished naval career. If I can call up Captain Bob Geist, Commanding Officer of Oceana, please. Thank you, sir. This comes from not just myself, but also our Chesapeake City Council. Presents this certificate of recognition to Captain Robert N. Geist, United States Navy Commanding Officer of NAS Oceana and NALF Fentress, for honorable and distinguished service as the Commanding Officer of NAS Oceana and NALF Fentress from March 2012 to the present day. Your efforts to assist the City of Chesapeake in many important events, such as implementation of the Encroachment Action Plan, and various partnering efforts have significantly enhanced the relationship between the United States Navy, sir, and the City of Chesapeake. You have contributed to the public safety by partnering with the City of Chesapeake in land usage and management, and appearing before City Council to represent the United States Navy regarding housing development in proximity to NALF Fentress. You have been instrumental in partnering on a major land acquisition that benefits both Chesapeake and the United States Navy, sir. As an active member of the community and a great friend to the City of Chesapeake, the members of City Council extend their heartfelt congratulations to you in recognition of these significant achievements and wish you continued success in all future endeavors, sir. Presented as 23rd day of July 2013, signed by yours truly. God bless you, sir. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Vice Mayor, what an honor and a surprise. Thank you very much. This obviously is I'm almost speechless, so I'm having a hard time finding words. Thank you all. This is really a commitment that the United States Navy and me personally, and I take that very seriously as we move forward. The relationship that we have built together is something that I treasure. The time we spent together was time that I wouldn't trade for in the world. We have built strong and lasting relationships, and I think that's what life's all about. So thank you all very much. This is quite an honor. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, would you please continue with the meeting, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is citizens' comments on agenda items only. Speakers appearing before City Council will not be allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, engage in personal attacks, use profanity or vulgar language. Speakers who do violate these rules will be declared out of order and will immediately yield the floor and be seated. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
No, Vice Mayor, we have no speakers on the agenda items.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item is the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you read the items in the consent agenda into the record?
Yes, sir. The consent agenda consists of the following items this evening. Under City Clerk items, refunds, Mark L. and Corinna R. Donald, $10,523.12. Billy R. and Patricia M. Payne, $2,551.52. Tyrone M. and Deborah M. Rounds, $6,795.60. And Clarence and Loretta Shires, $5,590.20. Under resignations, Betty Conti from the Citizens Juvenile Advisory Council. The city manager's consent items this evening are item 1, consideration of a request for authority to submit a 2013 asset forfeiture transfer program grant application to the Virginia Attorney General's Office, requested by the Police Department. Item 2, consideration of a request for appropriation of $5,400 in hazard mitigation grant funds awarded by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, requested by the Fire Department. Item 3, consideration of a request for appropriation of $42,300 in Justice Assistance Grant Funds awarded by the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, and $4,700 in cash match from asset forfeiture funds requested by the Police Department. And item 4, consideration of a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a fire emergency medical response mutual aid agreement with Currituck County, North Carolina, requested by the Fire Department. Those are the items on consent, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of council, are there any items that a council member would like removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? If not, a motion is in order to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Motion by Councilmember Ike, seconded by Councilmember Ward. Please prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Mayor, the next item is the regular agenda, and I'll turn the gavel over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. As always, I appreciate your service to our city. Madam Attorney, would you please read the next item into the record?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the commanding officer, Naval Air Station NAS Oceana, and Naval Auxiliary Landing Field NALF Fentress to establish procedures for the joint review of incompatible discretionary land use applications in the Fentress Airfield Overlay District. Members of City Council, you have received a corrected version of the resolution which corrects a clerical error in the third whereas clause. So I would ask that that be the addition that Council acts on tonight. As the title to the resolution suggests, this resolution will authorize the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Navy. The MOU will provide for joint review of discretionary incompatible land use applications in the Fentress Airfield Overlay District. Recommendations of the review group will be reflected in the planning staff report, and City Council will retain ultimate authority in acting on the land use proposal within the district. The development of the MOU was a team effort with the city staff and the Navy, and I understand and have verified that Oceana's commanding officer, Captain Geis, is here to respond to any questions.
Thank you. Before I do that, I'm going to ask Ms. Ritter for a motion.
Move approval of the corrected version of the
Mr.
resolution.
Matheson, can I have a second?
A second for the corrected version.
Thank you. We are fortunate enough to have in the audience, obviously, our commanding officer of Oceana. We just met, and we're going to hear from him in a second. Captain Bob Geis. Accompanying him is Captain Kit Chope. He's the executive officer. It's good to see you, sir. Appreciate you. Also, watching their flanks is Mr. Ferenzi and Mr. Roundtree. Appreciate that. With that being said, Captain Geis, is there anything at this moment you would like to say to us, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Again, for the record, I'm Captain Bob Geis. I'm the commanding officer of Naval Air Station Oceana, Dam Neck Annex, and Fentress Airfield. My business address is 1750 Tomcat Boulevard, Annex, Oceana. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to start off by saying I've absolutely enjoyed our time together and in our interaction during my tenure as commanding officer, and I'm confident that Captain Chope will continue that relationship. He said it right as I walked up here, so I promise. As I stated before, we worked together in the past, and the Navy is fully committed on building those relationships into the future. I'd like to speak in favor of the adoption of the MOU between the City of Chesapeake and the United States Navy. As you know, Naval Air Station Oceana and Fentress play a vital role in our nation's defense, and we believe that this MOU process is critical to the long-term operational viability of Oceana and Fentress, and the Navy sincerely appreciates the City of Chesapeake's commitment to our partnership. Through this open communication, we can ensure that no changes in flight operations, and we can ensure our ability to maintain a 24/7 capability at Fentress. Our staffs have worked together on this document, completely together, and we believe this MOU will codify the process that we built as we worked through the numerous issues we did this year. This will allow us to continue the work of the city's planners and applicants to find solutions that include compatible development, and that will facilitate a timely and thorough dialogue whenever proposed land use that may impact Navy operations, and also protect the property rights of the citizens of Chesapeake. We applaud and support your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that. With that being said, there's a motion by Ms. Ritter, second by Mr. Matheson with the corrected language. Members, please prepare to vote. Please vote. Please record the vote.
Motion to approve the resolution with corrected language is adopted by an 8-0 vote, with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. An ordinance to approve a joint exercise of powers agreement between the City of Chesapeake and the City of Roanoke for the creation of the VACO VML Virginia Investment Pool, and to establish a trust, or equivalent arrangements for the purpose of investing monies determined to derive most benefit from this investment strategy belonging to or within the city's control, other than sinking funds in certain authorized investments in accordance with Section 2.2, 4501 of the Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended. This ordinance will allow the city manager to and the city treasurer to execute an agreement between the cities of Chesapeake and Roanoke for the creation of the VML VACO Virginia Investment Pool. By adoption of the ordinance, City Council agrees to become a participating political subdivision of the Virginia Investment Pool, establish a trust for purposes of investing funds, designate the treasurer to serve as trustee for the City of Chesapeake, authorize the treasurer to execute the trust fund agreement and trust joinder agreement, and request that the treasurer present a report to the City Council upon the drafting of the trust and investment policies. The City Council of Roanoke is expected to adopt its ordinance in August of 2013. The ordinance will not become effective until the City of Roanoke also adopts its ordinance. The city treasurer is here with representatives from VML and VACO Trust to answer any questions that city council may have.
We had a work session on this. Dr. Dietrich?
Motion approved.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Dr. West. With that being said, members, please prepare to vote. Please vote. Please record the vote.
Motion to approve the ordinance as presented is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you. With that being said, citizens' comments on the services, policies, and affairs of the city. Are there any speakers at this time on non-agenda items?
Yes, Mayor. We do have 3 citizens who wish to address council on non-agenda items this evening. Under your rules of procedure, each citizen will be allowed 5 minutes to do so.
Who are the two first?
3 speakers, Herbert Wood, 1315 Cypress Place, representing Self, to speak on noise abatement and concerts that have been disturbing the peace, followed by Faith Whitehurst Miller. Mr. Wood?
Good evening, sir. It's nice to see you here this evening, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Herbert Wood, and I live at 1315 Cypress Place here in Chesapeake. Last Saturday, a neighbor of mine, Mr. Tanan, and I had an opportunity to have a conversation with Mrs. Ritter via telephone, and we discussed the excessive noise caused by the recent series of band concerts at the city park. Now, I want to give a little background, try to explain where I'm coming from. Okay. Let me just refer to my notes here.
Take your time, sir.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to explain, it's after living in Chesapeake for 16 years, you're probably wondering why, after all that time, these concerts have become an issue to me and my neighbors. And I want to say that over the years, of course, there have been other concerts, but the concerts have been usually connected with 4th of July or with the Jubilee. And this year there was a series of band concerts in the area. And so the frequency is increasing and the level of noise is increasing. And that's why I've come to speak to you, because if the concerts, there should be concerts in the park. We're not asking that the concerts in the park stop. There shouldn't stop. There should be concerts in the park. But what I am speaking about is the noise level. Do they have to be that loud? Now, as I said, I live at I live on Cypress Place in the Greenbrier section of Chesapeake. And that's 2.5 miles away from the city park. And on the nights of the concerts, the noise is so loud, and by noise I mean the beating of the bass. You can't hear the music. I don't get the benefit of a free concert at my home. I hear the sound, the beating of the bass. And that permeates my home, and every room in my home. And no matter if you turn on the television or turn up your CD player, you can still hear and feel the beating of the bass. So that's what I'm talking about by noise. And if I'm feeling that noise 2.5 miles away from the city park, what is the noise level like to the people that live adjacent to the park? It must be deafening. So like I said, nobody's asking for the concerts to end or to stop, but we're suggesting that there be some consideration into looking into some sort of noise abatement. And before everybody, looks at me crazy and waves their hands in the air and say there's an outdoor venue and there's nothing that we can do, there is technology and there are products and there are many companies that offer consulting and could be advisors to the city in planning for future events. So that's actually what I'm suggesting. And in fact, when I went on my smartphone and I found at least 5 people that offer services for when you're planning an outdoor concert or an outdoor event. So I'm hoping that you'll, take that into consideration for future events in the park.
Would you be kind enough to give that card to our city clerk, please, if you wish?
And that ends my comments, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity to listen to you. Next two speakers, please.
The next speaker is Faith Whitehurst Miller, 904 Mains Creek Road, representing Self, to speak on stormwater in Crest Harbor and Dominion Boulevard project as they relate to each other, followed by Dan Blakesley.
Thank you. Good evening, young lady.
Good evening. I'm Faith Whitehurst Miller. I'm a property owner at 904 Mains Creek Road, and I'm here to address some specific responses to addressing the storm flooding in the Crest Harbor area of Chesapeake. For those of you not familiar with the Crest Harbor area, it's bordered on Great Bridge Boulevard, Dominion Boulevard, Libertyville. Okay, so that's your frame of reference. And what you have specifically that I'm talking about particularly is the Mains Creek Road, which is the area where this property that I own is. Now, in this particular area, it is the lowest point on Mains Creek Road. And so whenever there is any kind of precipitation of more than 2 hours, there's flood. There was precipitation in May, and I have you know that the floor shows that there are 14 inches that the water came in just in the month of May, so we're not talking about hurricane later seasons. And addressing some of the members previously, the administrators previously, I understand that there was some drainage work done, but at this time, as I walked it today, there's only one drain for 6 houses, these particular 6 houses. This drain addresses those 6 houses, plus the water coming in from the creek, from Mains Creek down to that point, and from the easternmost part coming down from Great Bridge Boulevard that meet right there. There's only one drain there for the lowest point, wherever the water is coming from, Mullen Road. There's one drain there. So I guess one of my major questions is, why is it, knowing that that's the lowest point on Mains Creek Road, that there's only one drain there to address the water coming in from every direction? Coming in from Libertyville on Mullen, coming in from Dominion on Mullen, coming down from Great Bridge Boulevard down to Mullen, coming from Mains Creek. Okay, this is the lowest point, and there are 6 houses there particularly that are just overwhelmed, and no one seems to see this or to understand. Obviously, one of the first things that one has to do is get more than one drain there. And so my question to you is, what can you do to help those of us in that area with this drain problem there? And secondly, the Dominion project, the ponds that have been created and developed there, would those help give relief to the residents there in Crest Harbor in general and Mains Creek Road particularly? Thank you. I'd like responses to those questions.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Miller. Appreciate you. Next, Pastor.
Dan Blakesley, 2705 Taylor Road, representing Point Harbor Community Church, to request concurrent advertisement.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council members. Let me first say thank you for letting me address tonight, and let me thank you for your service to our community. Point Harbor Community Church is located over in the Western Branch area of Chesapeake, across from the Chesapeake Square Mall, and we are zoned as a residential property. Our church has been there for many years, and we are seeking a zoning change to Assembly Center because that's the appropriate zoning for our property. Along with that, we would like to put an illuminated sign on the property. So we are asking for dual advertising, concurrent advertising for our meetings. And our hardship is this. Now, it may not sound like a hardship to the average citizen, but if you've ever solicited donations from anybody, this is a real hardship in that we solicited donations to pay for this sign because our sign company told us, oh, you can have an illuminated sign where you are because
is perfectly legal, but we found out we weren't zoned properly for that. And we solicited these contributions 18 months ago. So we would really like to get that behind us, get the zoning change, and get our illuminated sign put in place. So that is our request tonight, is that we can do dual advertising so that we can get that accomplished.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
With that being said, thank you for the three speakers. Pastor Dan Blakesley is asking for a double advertising. He's being heard at the Planning Commission.
Planning Commission on August 14th, Mayor.
And it would come to the council on August 20th.
Yes, sir.
With that being said, can I have a motion, Dr. Dietrich?
Motion to grant concurrent advertising.
Can I have a second from Dr. Wood, seconded?
Yes.
With that being said, members, please prepare to vote. Please vote. Please record the vote.
Motion to approve concurrent advertisement for Point Harbor Community Church is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Madam Attorney, I'm assuming when he gets the Assembly Center District, he'll be able to do the illuminated sign. Has he been in front of your office as well as permits and development?
He has not been to our office, but I'm sure he's met with planning, and Mr. Mayor, he will have to go through the permit process for the sign, but assuming he meets all the criteria, yes, he would.
Would you be kind enough to give him, make sure that this young lady has your number? I know that Mr. Tate is right now on vacation, but if we could somehow make sure that we do what's necessary so he can continue having the blessing. Thank you. The young lady, Mrs. Faith Whitehurst Mill, we've had numerous meetings when it comes to this area with the civic leagues and what have you. Mr. Manager, is it possible to have someone from your staff, whether it be Mr. Dorothy or Mrs. Sawyer, someone, to talk with them and find out, I know we had an actual plan, but as it relates to the drainage and the drains, to see what can be done, if anything, at this time I can't tell you how many times we've moved forward to make this happen, including to help with the Dominion Boulevard Bridge. But if someone can give her a call tomorrow from your office, that would be very helpful.
We'll make those arrangements.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And in reference to Mr. Wood's concerns, Mr. Manager, I know the city clerk has a card from Mr. Wood. If you'd be kind enough to see if anything, I know we've improved the situation, but if there's anything could be done with our director from Parks and Recreation, that would be helpful. With that being said, Mr. Vice Mayor, next is boards and commissions, sir. I'm sorry, Dr. Board, I apologize, I didn't see.
Just, Mr. Manager, and I know you've done an excellent job of this, but could entire council get a follow-up with what goes on at Mains Creek Road, because we've brought this up so many times, City Council, if we could all get a notice of the actions and when that meeting takes place, I really would truly appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll do that as well.
Thank you so much. Again, Dr. Dietrich, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, the next item on the agenda are boards and commissions. We have a number of them to consider tonight. The first is the Chesapeake Agricultural Advisory Commission. There are 4 vacancies to consider, and for the purposes of nomination, Councilmember Ritter is recognized.
Thank you. I nominate for reappointment Judy Ferguson, Tom Freeman, Watson Lawrence, and ask that the 4th position be continued.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do you have those names? Are there additional nominations from the floor? If not, motion is in order. To close and appoint.
Move to close and appoint. Second.
Motion by Councilmember West to close and appoint, seconded by Councilmember Craig. Please prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to reappoint Judith Ferguson, Tom Freeman, and Watson Lawrence, and to continue the remaining vacancy is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next is the Chesapeake Committee on Aging. There is 1 vacancy to consider. For purposes of a nomination, the Vice Mayor recognizes Councilmember Craig.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to continue that, please.
Madam Clerk, continue to the next Boards and Commission consideration.
Okay.
Without objection from council. The next is the Chesapeake Tourism Advisory Board. And Mayor Krasnoff, do you have names?
I do, but I'll defer at this moment to Councilmember Ritter, please.
Councilmember Ritter is recognized.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly not being here tonight, she asked me if I would make these nominations for her. She has requested that Lori Campbell Mary Jackson and Danny Ferret be appointed.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there 4 vacancies?
There are, Vice Mayor, but I believe we do not have anybody for the restaurant
Right.
industry
So
position.
so
So that will be continued.
Yes,
Right.
that would be continued.
Yes. Additional nominations? If not, a motion to close and appoint?
Motion to close and appoint.
Motion to close and appoint by Councilmember Matheson, seconded by Councilmember Ward. Please prepare to vote. Please vote, Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to appoint Laurie Campbell, Mary Jackson, and Danny Ferret, and to continue the remaining vacancy. It's adopted by an 8-0 vote, with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next is the expanded Public Art Committee. There's 1 vacancy to consider, and for purposes of nomination, Councilmember Ward is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, and I'd like to nominate Mr. William Rafferty for that position.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward. Additional nominations? If not, a motion to close and appoint.
Move close and appoint.
Motion by Councilmember Ike to close and appoint.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Matheson. Prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to appoint William Raftery to the expanded Public Art Committee is adopted by an 8-0 vote, with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next is the Natural Event Mitigation Advisory Committee. There are 2 vacancies to consider. For purposes of nomination, Councilmember Ike is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would move to appoint Steve Jones and Stuart Spatz.
Additional nominations from the floor? Councilmember Ritter is recognized. Motion by Councilmember Ward to close and appoint, seconded by, I believe, Councilmember Matheson made the second, Mr. Craig. Thank you. Please prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to appoint Stuart Spatz and Steve Jones to the Natural Event Mitigation Advisory Committee is adopted by an 8-0 vote, with Councilmember Kelly excused. I would ask, Vice Mayor, if Councilmember Ike has spoken with Mr. Jones to see if he's interested in resigning from Transportation Safety. Okay, we'll contact him tomorrow and find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Excuse me. While there's a-
Councilmember Ritter is recognized.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, while there's a contact, I think that we had a letter from the city staff about Ms. Johnson, too, if you could see if we could find that and distribute it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ritter. The next is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. There's 1 vacancy to consider. For purposes of nomination, Councilmember Ike is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move to appoint Michael Shepard.
Mr. Michael Shepard is nominated. Additional nominations from the floor? If not, the motion to close and appoint.
Motion to close and appoint.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Matheson to close and appoint, seconded by Councilmember Ward. Please prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to appoint Michael Shepard to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is adopted by an 8-0 vote, with Councilmember Kelly excused. And we'll check on that one also tomorrow, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next is the Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia. This is a regional board. There is 1 vacancy to consider, and the Vice Mayor will open the nominations to the council. Are there any nominations? There is 1 vacancy.
I'd like to ask that this be continued for 30 days.
Without objection, Madam Clerk, we will continue this until the next board and commission consideration. The next is the Stormwater Committee. There is 1 vacancy to consider. Purposes of nomination, Councilmember Ritter is recognized.
Thank you. I nominate Peter Fortin.
Mr. Peter Fortin is nominated. Additional nominations from the floor? If not, a motion to close and appoint.
Close and appoint.
Motion by Councilmember Ward to close and appoint, seconded by Councilmember Matheson. Please prepare to vote. Please vote. Madam Clerk, record.
Motion to appoint Peter Fortin to the Stormwater Committee is adopted by an 8-0 vote, with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Mayor, that concludes boards and commissions.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there any unfinished business at this time? Is there any new business before I ask for a closed session? Madam Attorney, please.
Thank you. It's a motion to conduct a closed session to consult with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefings in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel as permitted by Section 2.23711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
A motion's in order, Dr. Dietrich. Thank you. Is there a second, Mr. Craig?
Second.
Thank you. With that being said, members, please prepare to vote. Please vote. Please record the vote.
Motion to hold a closed session to consult with legal counsel on actual or probable litigation and on legal matters is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
We'll go back there in 3 minutes. Thank you.
A motion to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered.
Dr. Dietrich, Dr. Wood, seconded. Members, please prepare to vote. Please vote. Please record the vote.
Motion to certify the closed session discussion is adopted by an 8-0 vote with Councilmember Kelly excused.
Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dear God, we ask for your blessings on the people and families who make up our community here in Chesapeake. We acknowledge your ability to impact our lives. Now we thank you for each individual who leads and seeks to be a blessing to our community. Help us to think of others before ourselves and give us the determination to leave this place better and stronger than we found it. Amen.
Thank you. Amen.